All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story, Blessing Awodibu, a.k.a. the Boogeyman, announces that he will be competing as well in this Spain show in 2 weeks. Now, Blessing was originally scheduled to make his pro debut earlier this year at the Arnold Classic Australia. Now, as you guys know by now, he was looking pretty good going into that Australia show, but it was canceled, and he wasn't able to compete, and he hasn't made his pro debut yet. But apparently, he will be competing in Spain in 2 weeks. Again, that's the show where the top three at that show all qualify for the Olympia. Now, Blessing, this is interesting because this is really becoming the year of the pro debut. You had Hunter Labrada make his pro debut in Tampa, and he won that show. You've got Nick Walker, who's about to make his pro debut at the Chicago Pro. Everybody's talking about that. And now here you've got Blessing. Some of you guys probably didn't know that Blessing hasn't competed as a pro yet, but he hasn't. So Blessing is going to be the third pro debut this year that I'm looking forward to seeing. But the question is going to be, is he going to look similar to how he looked preparing for the Arnold Australia? Now, a couple days ago, he posted this picture hitting like a crunched abs and thigh shot, but he doesn't say whether or not it's recent. Assuming it is recent, he looks pretty similar to the shape he was getting in for Australia. But my question is, if he's jumping in this show at the last minute, is he really going to look as good as he could have looked in Australia? Because he was prepping for Australia like months and months in advance, and he looked fantastic during that prep. I don't know, but for some reason, this to me seems like an extremely last-minute decision to jump in this lineup at 2 weeks out, to kind of make that announcement in the roundabout way that he did in a Instagram caption 2 weeks out. I don't know. Maybe he hasn't been preparing for it as long as he prepared for the Australia show. But I do think this is another pro debut that has the potential for the person making the pro debut to win the show. Now, I'm not going to go out on that far of a limb and predict that Blessing is going to win at this point because we've barely seen how he looks. But I, for one, am certainly more excited now to see that Europa Spain show. Now, next up in the news, you guys know where this one is going. Big Ramy. He's been kind of trolling us with physique updates lately that weren't really recent. They were from before the Arnold Classic. But I am pretty certain, based on what I've been told, that Ramy will be competing, or at least trying to compete, prior to the Olympia in an attempt to qualify legitimately. He's not qualified yet. Now, with that being said, in one of Ramy's recent stories, you can tell pretty easily that he's in really good shape right now. The death face. His face is very dry and sucked in. He looks miserable because of how his face looks. And the fact of the matter is, Ramy only gets this face when he's preparing for a show. We've talked about this before previous shows, talking about whether or not that's an indication of the shape that he's going to be in at the show after we already knew he was competing, because his face looked like this prior to the Olympia, prior to the Arnold Classic. But right now, he hasn't officially committed to any show, so we don't know when he's competing. And you can never tell with Ramy which of his physique updates are in fact recent physique updates. So really all you can go off of is the death face. And I think Big Ramy might be competing extremely soon. I thought he was doing Chicago. I've had some people tell me they thought he was doing Chicago that were closer to Ramy than I am. But this Spain show, I still think, presents the best opportunity for Ramy to get to the Olympia, although I don't know if he would want to go to the Olympia off of just a top 3 placing. I think Ramy would want to go to the Olympia off of a win, so maybe it doesn't matter to him about the difference between the Spain and Chicago, and he might do Chicago still. But maybe there's a chance, based on the death face, that Big Ramy could be competing in the next 2 weeks. I guess only time will tell. But it looks like there is going to be another last-minute opportunity to qualify for the Olympia. And this is going to be in November. So the Romania Muscle Fest Pro, which I thought got canceled, but it looks like it's still going to be happening for now. This Romania Pro show is scheduled for November 13th and 15th. And I believe that makes this the last show that's an Olympia qualifier. The final opportunity to qualify for the 2020 Mr. Olympia. And I actually heard of this because Peter Molnar, who was a professional bodybuilder within another organization, he posted a post that says he's going to be competing in this Romania show, but he's going to be competing as an amateur. He's not an IFBB pro, so he's switching over to the NPC side of things and taking the route to being a pro through the NPC. So that's how I actually realized that the show was still happening. So right now, I believe you have the Spain show, you got the Europa Spain, you've got Chicago Pro, and then you've got this Romania Pro are the final opportunities to qualify for the Olympia. Now, next up in the news, Hafthor Bjornsson and his wife announced yesterday that they welcomed a brand new baby boy to the world. So it's good to see that Hafthor was able to be there for the birth of his son. We know that maybe a week ago he was worried that, he had to take this COVID test, but it fortunately turned out to be negative. He didn't have to quarantine, and he was able to make it to see the birth of his son. So that is always good. A negative test result with a positive outcome. Now, next up in the news, CT Fletcher reposted a video of his son Samson cheat curling 205 pounds for a set of 3. CT Fletcher, of course, prior to Denis Saplinkov, was the world record holder for the strict curl for a very long time, passing on those strict curl genetics to his son. And he says in the caption, and I couldn't help but read this in his voice in my head. He says, "I said, son, if you want to strict curl big numbers, you must first cheat curl huge numbers," taking it back old school. He's just getting started on curling. He used to hate it, but I think he's coming around. 235 pounds, 100% natural. Tell him I'm coming 205 for 3. And coincidentally, the reason I saw this post is because CT commented on my strict curl video on my Instagram, so I clicked over on his page and I saw that video. He commented on my picture and said, on my video and said, "I think cheat curls are very productive. After a while, the weights he cheats up will become the weights his warm-up weight because his strength will increase dramatically from the cheat curls." So I definitely appreciate the words of wisdom from Mr. Fletcher. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, you've got Flex Lewis at 12 weeks out from the Olympia now, running through a heavy leg workout with men's open pro Hassan Mustafa. In the beginning, you see them training pretty heavy on the leg press and doing some other leg exercises in the videos. But it's cool to see Flex, who up until now was a 212 bodybuilder, training with all these men's open guys. He used to train with Rafael Brandao, and then he was training with John De La Rosa. Now he's training with Hassan Mustafa. All these guys are men's open bodybuilders. And in every training video with these men's open guys, Flex looks every bit as big, if not bigger, than the men's open pros that he's working out with. And these are top-level guys. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about how Flex Lewis will place in his first men's open Olympia this December of 2020. That's going to wrap it up for today's video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to this channel if you had not subscribed already. That's a very important part. You got to hit subscribe for us to get to 1 million. So smash that subscribe button. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.